have a reaction on Jon Gruden resigning yesterday on Monday, the 11th of October, because of some statements that he made, which we thought started out last week. Now, the story broke last week, probably Thursday or Friday last week, about some emails where Jon Gruden made some disheartening comments about DeMaurice Smith, the player personnel union chief. And he said that this brother had a pair of Michelin, a big pair of big lips, like Michelin tires, unquote. And I thought about it. I said, well, I mean, black people, we do have ethnically thicker lips, because I'm a black man and I do. The ladies kind of like it, but that's a whole nother conversation. But he made a comment about this man's lips. But why did he say Michelin tires? Okay, it could have been, anything, some pillow cushionies or whatever. I don't know what it was, but this man said Michelin tires, and we're going to get back to that. But just to let you know, 11 years ago, that was 11 years ago. And I'm thinking Jon Gruden is about to make a formal apology and keep his job. But this weekend, I've been audited before, and some of you may have been audited before. And if you understand how audits work, once they start looking into your files or your paperwork or whatever they're auditing, and they don't find any mishaps out the gate, they're like, okay, let me check this out. This is gonna be a good, good audit. All right, let me see this, and here you go, check. Let me see that, here you go, check, right? But just imagine the first thing that they asked for, you was not prepared and you was not ready for this audit. So this is when they say, okay, we're going to be here all night and order coffee, take your jackets off, because we got a lot of work to do, because you couldn't even produce what we needed or required out the gate. So now we about to find some things. So when he said these things about this man's lips, these big Michelin tire lips, I'm sure they said, well, if he says something like this against a very powerful, rich black man who's not a player, he's the union chief, the player personnel union chief, a black man of influence. If he could say something about this man, he could have said something about, the alphabet people, what Dave Chappelle would say. So they started digging and they found misogynistic and anti-gay. And I got to defend him on this, defend Jon Gruden, because he has the only active NFL openly gay player on his team, and I'm sure he loved the guy, and he's been coaching blacks his whole life. But it was just a wrong move or something insensitive that you shouldn't say, in which we've all said. Because last night, Lamar Jackson, I'm sure he was called the N-word all night, because when the Monday Night Football last night, the Ravens was down to the Colts by 16 points. And he fumbled on 2 occasions, and one of them almost went for a fumble touchdown, but it was an illegal passing of the ball or illegal pitch or whatever. So basically, it was 1st and 10. But he did have 2 fumbles. But in the light of this situation, when Jon Gruden got canned and had to resign for making these comments about the gays, that's what really happened, because they would have forgave him about the lips, believe me. But once he went there, it was a wrap. But think about it, how far we've come as a people. Now, 11 years ago, Jon Gruden was calling the brother, talking about this brother had these big Michelin tire lips. That was 11 years ago. And 11 years ago, they had players like Lamar Jackson, who's the starting quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens. He couldn't even play quarterback because, they wanted the quarterbacks that's athletes, play a different position, don't play quarterback, do this, do that, do this, do that. But in these days and times, Lamar Jackson got an opportunity that he wouldn't have gotten 10, 11, 12, 15 years ago, because they wanted the tall John Elway, Tom Brady, Caucasian, tall white guy, to be the man. But nowadays, it's talent. Now that you could be a dual threat. So I'm saying this in light of the changing of the guard, because Jon Gruden was fired. He was able to resign. And it was some misogynistic and gay comments, but he did talk about the brother, which actually broke the story, which opened Pandora's box, which got them looking and purging and trying to find any other discrepancies. Because once you find one discrepancy, you can find another. So those of you who are being audited, make sure out the gate you at least got your fundamental paperwork, because you might get a pass moving forward. But in light of the racist comment about this man, big black lips, why on Monday Night Football, a black man who probably couldn't play quarterback 15, 20 years ago, looked just like this big lip black man that Jon Gruden is talking about? Why did he break the NFL record yesterday? Yes, Lamar Jackson broke the NFL record. This man threw 4 touchdowns, had 0 interceptions, threw for over 400, had 420 plus yards. And this is the key. He threw 86% from the field. The first player ever in football history, this brother that got Michelin Tire Lips, just like the player personnel director, just like the lips I got, just broke the NFL record. It has the highest percentage passing, not running. He only had 30 yards rushing last night, only 30 yards, but he threw for 432 yards last night, and he completed 37 out of 43 passes. Nobody has ever done that in the history of the NFL. So just imagine if 10, 15, 20 years ago, black quarterbacks were getting the opportunities that the brothers are getting now, football would be a different brand. So when you talk about racism, let's talk about it for real, because what Jon Gruden said about that man Lips, that was pretty much prejudice. He was capping on him. He was bagging on him. Poor judgment. He just looked right at him. Okay, and then the same thing about the gays, because if he was a real racist or whatever, he wouldn't work with black people. He wouldn't hire people because they're black. The openly gay player on the Raiders, I'm drawing a blank, but I'll put him, you see him, that guy, he wouldn't even put him on the team. This was 10, 15, 11 years ago. But if they could go after Jon Gruden, wow, they could cancel anybody. So all I'm saying is, if you've got some emails out there, start doing your inventory, start making sure you get rid of that stuff, because we don't want you to get caught up, because they typically wait till you get to your peak, especially if that's the hand that feeds you, before they drop this bombshell, because I'm sure they had these emails and somebody knew what was going on. And I'm sure these things were turned in. But right now, we need to do this because we're in this cancel culture. So cancel Jon Gruden. So it is what it is at this point. But when it comes back to the man's lips, I had a problem with it, man, because like I said, my lips kind of look similar. Even Lamar Jackson looked just like the brother. We have thick ethnic lips, and people go get Botox because they want these ethnic lips. But the crazy thing about it for me is, why did he say Michelin tires? And I'm like, Michelin tires? Wait a minute. Oh, then it came to me. Don't think about what he said from a black man's perspective. Get outside the box. Look at it from his perspective. So the Michelin tire reference was black and rubbery.